We've all experienced them weird, unexplainable coincidences that seem far more than just chance. But today, I'm looking at some unbelievable events that suggest there are forces at work of which we know very little. Forces that may work for good or evil, saving lives or taking them. Forces that have even started wars and predicted their outcome. I'll also be looking at theories that might explain such incredible happenings. Call it destiny, karma, guardian spirits, or synchronicity. Is the universe itself controlling our actions in some way we don't understand? Let's find out.
Almost different voice, and I said, look, I won't join you to you made a mistake, but I must say something. Please do not get into that car.
On December the 5th, 1664, a ship sank in the Menai Strait, a notorious sea passage off the coast of North Wales. Of the 80 people aboard, only one survived, a man named Hugh Williams. In December 1785, another ship foundered in the same strait. Again, there was just one survivor. His name? Hugh Williams. In 1820, a third ship was lost in the Menai Strait. This time, there were two survivors, a man named Hugh Williams and his nephew, who was named Hugh Williams. These waters have claimed hundreds of ships. Hugh Williams is a common name in the area, but could random chance really explain such a bizarre set of coincidences? In 2018, Zhu Weifeng saved a young boy from drowning, despite the fact that he himself was 80 years old and still recovering from a serious accident some years earlier. Remarkable enough, but Zhu then discovered he'd also saved the life of the boy's father in the same river 30 years earlier. The boy's grandfather, who has now had 2 generations of his family saved by Zhu, said he is our family's saviour. In a similar story that was reported during the 1930s, a street sweeper named Joseph Figlock was working in a Detroit alley when a very young child fell from a 4th-story window, slightly injuring him on the head and shoulders, but saving the child's life. A year or so later, while Figlock was sweeping a different alley, another child fell from a different 4th-story window, again hitting him on the head and shoulders. Though injured, the child again survived. Perhaps one of the oddest life-saving coincidences of all concerns Martin de Jonge from the Netherlands, a professional cyclist from a Malaysian-based team. In March 2014, he was supposed to be on flight MH370, the plane that mysteriously vanished. A story, by the way, that you can check out in this video. While sitting in the departure lounge, he was swapped to a different flight, leaving his fellow passengers to board the ill-fated jet to their deaths. If that's not strange enough, just months later, he again switched his travel plans just before boarding Malaysian Airlines flight MH17. That plane was also lost with all on board, shot down over Ukraine. So are these sorts of events really just pure chance? Some scientists would point to the law of truly large numbers. With so many people on our planet, it argues, even an event that has odds of 1 in a billion is going to happen to someone. It's difficult to see how that could explain all of these events, and the many more like them that have also been recorded. Could it be more than chance, a force somehow saving lives, or using certain people like Zhu and Figlock to save them? Protective spirits, or guardian angels, appear in many philosophies and religions, including Zoroastrianism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Sikhism. Ancient Greek philosophers believed that every person had a guardian spirit assigned to them for life. The Mesopotamians claimed there were 2 spirit beings, the Shidu and the Lamassu, that guided and protected humans. Today, some even claim that those spirits are visible in the shape of glowing orbs and can even be caught in photographs. Are these actual images of protective spirits? Critics often dismiss them as dust specks on the camera, which some may be. But I've heard personal testimony from someone who's witnessed such orbs firsthand. Even if protective spirits could be responsible for those events, though, what about coincidences that prove fatal? In 1883, a farmer and businessman named Henry Ziegland of Honey Grove, Texas, broke off his engagement to a woman named Macy Tickner. Heartbroken, Macy killed herself. Maddened by grief, her brother swore revenge on Ziegland. One day, when the farmer was out cutting trees, the brother ambushed him, opening fire with a rifle. The shot grazed Ziegland's head, knocking him out, before burying itself in a nearby tree. Assuming the bloodied and unconscious Ziegland to be dead, Ticknor turned the gun on himself. Miraculously, though, Ziegland recovered, and the story became a local legend. Some 20 years later, by now married with a family, Henry was again out cutting wood on his land. One particular tree was so large that he opted to use dynamite, as often happened at the time. On blowing the charge, a bullet embedded in the tree trunk. Presumably the same one fired by Tickner 2 decades earlier, was blasted free, striking Ziegland in the temple and killing him instantly. Was he somehow destined to die by Tickner's hand, however long that took? On July the 30th, 1974, in Hamilton, Bermuda, 17-year-old Erskine Lawrence Ebbin collided with a taxi while riding his newly repaired moped and was killed instantly. A tragic accident, except that almost exactly a year earlier, on July the 18th, 1973, Erskine's brother Neville had died on the same moped, on the same street, also colliding with a taxi. Erskine had been fixing the moped ever since his brother's death and was on his first ride. Most bizarre of all, though, the taxi both boys hit was driven by the same man, Willard Manders, and he was carrying the same passenger both times. Hamilton is a small place, so there aren't many taxi drivers or streets or mopeds. Such a weird series of events might just be pure chance. But could it be that the taxi driver was fated to kill the brothers? Or was the moped somehow the cause? An eerily similar coincidence haunts the film star James Dean, who famously died in a car crash at the age of just 24. As well as ending his life, it's claimed the car itself went on to kill again. After Dean's accident, the Porsche was sold for spares. Amateur racer Dr. William Eskerich installed the engine in his car, while fellow racer Troy McHenry used the suspension and transmission. Both raced for the first time in their new vehicles at the 1956 SCCA race in Pomona. Both crashed, and though a badly injured Eskerich survived, McHenry died, and it still wasn't the end of the car's murderous career. The shattered body was used at a touring road safety exhibition, which fell off its stand on a number of occasions, injuring a passerby and killing the driver of the truck being used to transport it. The whereabouts of the vehicle today are unknown. Perhaps if there are spirits that protect, there are those that also kill. Maybe these stories show that people and even objects can be cursed. Many Eastern philosophies, though, uphold the idea of karma, that what you do in a previous life may impact you in your current one. Perhaps having your life saved is a reward for something you've done previously, and having it taken is payback for your previous actions. Karma might even help explain coincidences such as this apparent case of reincarnation. The spirit of Enzo Ferrari returning as soccer player Mesut Ozil, born just 2 months after the racer's death, perhaps needing another chance to prove himself at the highest level of sport. Though there is another eerie coincidence to James Dean's death that hints other forces might be at work too. In 1977, Alec Guinness, the original Obi-Wan Kenobi actor, gave this interview to the BBC, in which he describes a chance encounter with James Dean on the day he picked up the car he was to die in, and when he proudly showed Sir Alec.
A thing came over me, some almost different voice, and I said, look, I won't join your table unless you want me to, but I must say something. Please do not get into that car. Because if you do, and I looked at my watch, and I said, if you get into that car at all, it's now Thursday, whatever the date was, 10 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock at night, next Thursday, you'll be dead.
Sure enough, it was the following Thursday that Dean died, in that same car. Writer Mark Twain seems to have had a similar experience. In 1835, the year of his birth, Halley's Comet was making one of its regular flybys of Earth, an event that occurs only once every 76 years. Speaking in 1909, Twain said, "It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it." And on the day the comet did reappear, Twain passed away. In 1838, Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, a disturbing novel telling of a fictional crew shipwrecked at sea without food or water. In desperation, they decided one of them must die, to be eaten by the others. On drawing lots, a man named Richard Parker is killed. Some 50 years later, the crew of a yacht named Mignonette faced the same situation in real life. After 3 weeks adrift in a lifeboat, they elected to kill and eat the ship's cabin boy. His name was Richard Parker. Coincidences, or are the lives we live preordained? Perhaps these sorts of premonitions give us glimpses of something deeper, patterns of the universe that control our lives, even the possibility of seeing into the future. One of the strangest set of coincidences of all led directly to the loss of over 20 million lives. On June the 28th, 1914, a group of assassins tried to kill Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary. They failed. A grenade bounced off the back of the car the Archduke was travelling in before it exploded, injuring a number of people in the crowd. The would-be assassins scattered. The Archduke decided to change his plans and visit the wounded in hospital. A seemingly random series of events led the motorcade altering its route and stopping right next to Gavrilo Princip, one of the men who tried to kill him only an hour or so earlier. Opening fire, Princip fatally wounded both the Duke and his wife, an event that is widely seen as precipitating World War I. Oddly, Franz Ferdinand had narrowly escaped death the year before in a hunting accident. Many believe it's possible that if he had died then, war may have been avoided. So was his death and the war itself meant to be? Some people see one final, chilling hint. World War I eventually ended on the 11th of November 1918. The number plate of the car the Archduke Ferdinand died in 4 years earlier can be read as A111118, Armistice 11/11/18. Proof that Franz Ferdinand's death and the carnage that followed was preordained? Many philosophies and religions do claim our lives are predetermined. Both Greek and Chinese philosophies speak of a cosmic order, a natural way that things must be. Many leading scientists through the ages, including Einstein, have argued for the concept of determinism, that our actions, choices, our whole lives are planned and ordered, and that nothing is just chance. In Einstein's words, God does not play dice with the universe. Our next set of extraordinary stories seems to support that. In 1940, a pair of 3-month-old twins were adopted by separate families. On February the 9th, 1979, now aged nearly 40, they met each other for the first time. What they discovered was mind-blowing. Unnamed when adopted, their new families called them both James. Both men shortened that to Jim. As kids, both had a dog that they called Toy. In school, both were good at maths and woodwork, but poor at spelling. Both later married twice. Each of their first wives was called Linda. Each of their second wives was called Betty. They drove the same make of car, had similar jobs, an adopted brother named Larry, and a son named James Allen. So bizarre were the similarities that the Jim twins were extensively studied as examples of nature v nurture, the idea that DNA plays a bigger part in our lives than upbringing. But such an uncannily identical life from two people separated at birth seems far beyond the realm of genetics, let alone sheer chance. Perhaps the Jims were just living the life that the universe had planned for them all along. In 2015, US Today reported the case of another set of twins. Helen May Cook and Clara May Mitchell. Their lives had also followed an identical pattern, so it seemed the most natural thing in the world to their families when both died within hours of each other on the same day, though neither had been seriously ill. It could just be a coincidence, but at some level, we've all experienced that weird sense of connection, perhaps thinking of someone we've not seen for years, only to meet them on the street. Many psychologists believe these events are more than just chance and have shared their own experiences too. Bernard Beatman, a psychiatrist and visiting professor at the University of Virginia, has been researching coincidence for many years. He recounts a terrifying event that happened to him. In San Francisco in 1973, February the 26th, I stood at a sink uncontrollably choking. There was nothing in my throat that I knew of. It was around 11 o'clock in San Francisco. The next day, my brother called and told me my father had died at 2 a.m. in Wilmington, Delaware, which was 11 in San Francisco, and he had died by choking on blood in his throat. That was a dramatic experience for me, and I began to look to see if other people had experiences like this. And many people have. Are there links we're not aware of that bring about these events? In 1952, Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, published a book with physicist Wolfgang Pauli. They suggested a new sort of force called synchronicity that could be responsible for these sorts of meaningful coincidences and connections that seemed to have no logical cause. Jung's suggestion was such happenings are part of a deeper connection between a collective unconsciousness that we all share, and the universe itself, the thing that we know as reality. It could explain many of the stories we've looked at, along with phenomena like ESP and reincarnation. And many philosophers, psychiatrists, and psychologists, including Beatman, are now taking the concept seriously. As with all the other ideas in this video, it's controversial, but evidence is mounting that some of the events we call coincidence could be something very different. What do you think? Have you had experiences that can't be explained by chance? Let me know in the comments. And by coincidence, or maybe synchronicity, I've already looked at reincarnation in this video, with more strange stories and a little more on Carl Jung's mind-bending ideas, so check it out. And remember to like and subscribe to catch the latest videos first. Thanks for watching.